Let's talk about profitability. How should we as women get over our fear of talking about making money without apology? When did you last deep dive the numbers for your interior design business? Are you charging for your initial consultations? If not, you should be. And today's conversation with Laura Thornton is exactly what you need if talking about money makes you cringe. Meet Laura. She's the founder and creative director of the award-winning Thornton Design Studio. Since 1999, she has shared her wealth of experience and insights with fellow interior designers through her podcast, The Business of Beautiful Spaces. Laura is committed to working collaboratively, bringing her unique magic to every project while staying true to each client's needs. Do you love interior design but can't make the business side work? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Success by Design, mastering the business of interior design. Whether you want to elevate in your current interior design firm, start your own firm, or move the needle when it comes to your existing firm's trajectory, this is your masterclass, and I'm your host, Katie Erickson. Learn from my mistakes as I built a coast-to-coast, multi-million-dollar interior design firm. I share nearly 20 years of serving as a university professor of undergraduate and graduate business courses with you. And best of all, I bring in experts in all things business and interior design. Class starts now. Laura, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
We are so excited that you are. And honestly, talking about a really, really, really important topic, one I'm so excited to talk about, profitability. I have that little jingle in the back of my head, money, 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 right?
Yeah,
it's everything in this career. And I think as women, a lot of times, one, we're afraid to talk about it. We can't unapologetically say, I'm here to make money. And that's okay. I love what I do and I should be paid for it.
I do.
Yeah, right?
That's what I say.
That's why we have Laura on the show today. It's so true. So I want to back into it. When did you realize that we have a profitability problem in our industry? What was your personal experience where you're like, this isn't working out for me. We better fix this.
Well, I think it was more or less probably right at the beginning. Now, whether I slowed down to really digest that was the problem, but every time it started to be that, you were looking at your numbers and reassessing and nobody was flinching with what I was charging, that I started to creep up slowly. And then every time, you would cringe when you were going to put your quote across the table or you were sending something to a client and nobody was flinching, that I realized there's more money to be made. And like all of us, that is why we're in business. We're in business to make a living. We're in business to pay our bills and hopefully have something left over at the end of the month to do something lovely for ourselves or our family or whatever the case may be, or to save it for retirement. We are all entrepreneurs. We do not have a built-in retirement fund. And so it was probably in my first 10 years of business where at first I had a young family and I was kind of doing it not as full-time. And so I wasn't able to justify the cost in my head. And as I smartened up, I realized it shouldn't matter. No one needs to know if I'm not working 45 to 60 hours a week. If I was only putting in 20 to 25, I should still be getting paid properly for those hours that I am putting into the job. And then as I, figured that out on my own and started doing some work within our community of interior designers, the questions were very consistent with how to make money. How do you charge for this? What do you do in this scenario? How do you charge for your design time? Our community is lonely. We don't have a lot of people who do what we do in my world anyway. And that is changing, thank goodness, with podcasts like this, with communities and a lot of us are women, and the topic of money has been taboo probably in a lot of people's lives. But once we start talking and sharing, it's amazing how people are able to gain and learn how to charge for their time properly and gain that confidence in themselves. And so this has been something now that has bothered me enough that I figured there has to be something out there. We're not taught in school. We're taught in school about beautiful fabrics and lighting and how to do floor plans and all of these great things, but no one has taught us how to run a business and more importantly, how to be profitable within that business. So it's been a long journey, but really in the last few years, it became very evident that other people are needing that information. And listen, it was a long road of 10 years of figuring out where I could charge, how I could make money. And like we said earlier, I am unapologetically in business to make money. As much as I'm a very fun person to hang around with and I like to have a good time, At the end of the day, I have bills to pay and kids to send to university. And that's what I wanted to be able to pass on to others.
And it's so expensive to do so. And you had so many good nuggets in there. One line that I love to explain to designers who are struggling with this: they are not paying you for what you are doing for them at this moment. They're paying you for the work that you've done. When you go to a specialist, at least here in the States, right? You go to a specialist, you're going to pay $500 an hour. No problem, right? And you see him for 15 minutes and you're like, my dermatologist, I think my dermatologist bills about $500 per appointment. You get a 15 to 20 minute appointment. He looks over your whole body. Great, you're good to go. Well, I'm not paying him for that 20 minutes, right? I'm paying him for all the years of school, all the bodies he's looked at, everything he can see in a New York minute on my skin, that I'd be sitting there Googling who knows what and diagnosing myself with who knows what, right? Same is true of design. You're paying us because we have touched cajillions of fabrics. We know which paint colors work from which manufacturers. We think about structure and load bearing. We want to know where you're going to plug in your toaster in the morning. All of these things have all been built in to what you're buying today. And so I think sometimes there's this inhibition of designers of like, I don't know, it's a lot to charge an hour. And I love what you mentioned about flinch. They weren't flinching. Like at some point, keep going until you get a flinch, because the value you're providing is insane. When did you finally hit that? When did you go, okay, I've hit that amount. Like I see the flinch. Now we're there.
Well, that was during COVID with all the changes of construction. To be very fair, in Canada, where I'm from, our construction costs went double.
Wowza.
So it wasn't my design time. It wasn't what we were. It was literally materials for construction. So that's when people who had done projects prior and understood the difference knew. But when it comes to our elements, which are the, furniture and finishes, nobody was flinching.
Isn't that insane? It
was just the other elements where even I was like back to the being nervous to put the paperwork across the table. And this is the total. But to your point, like when you were saying about I'm Canadian too. So when you just said it was $500 for 15 minutes for your doctor, that made me cringe because we don't have bills here for medical. So I can't even imagine what that's like. But
it's crazy.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. But it's not just the education and all the years behind them. It's because they're efficient. He saved you. For us who bill by the hour, you weren't just sitting in that room for an hour while he flipped through his book to figure it out. He's saving you time too on the back end. And so those are the things that I hear designers saying, well, we're faster. And so we can do it faster. We don't charge you as much. And that's where I want to be like, pump the brakes.
Absolutely.
You should not be shortchanging yourself because you do have decades or years of experience and you're more efficient. That's a benefit to the client, but you should not be shortchanging yourself and using that as a tool to market yourself because yes, you have that knowledge. Yes, you have all of that background and education, but that doesn't mean that there's a deal because you spent decades doing it.
Great point. What do you say to the women though? Like, I feel like there's this fear factor. Like the first bank for women in America came about relatively close to my lifetime. I want to say it was 70s, early 80s. Women were not allowed to have their own bank account in America without a male cosigner as recently as that. And I think that there is this generational problem of money and women overall. We could go down a long rabbit hole on that, right? But the first day the women's bank opened, it was actually a handful of women that got together and said, we're going to start our own women's bank. And there was a line around the block and they got millions of dollars in deposits pulled out from under mattresses, inside walls. It was like, I can run my own finances. I still feel like we have a hangover from that sitting here 50-ish years later. What do you say to the woman that's like, how do I get over my fear of sliding that proposal across the table and being confident and saying, I am absolutely worth this? Because to your point, I've gotten more efficient. I've done the work. I felt the fabrics and I'm here to execute for you. How do we get rid of that emotional response to profit making?
Well, I guess, do we ever?
Fair question.
Is it the fake it till you make it, which I hate that term, by the way. But if you are confident in your numbers and you know that they are accurate, like I don't sell anything at a retail level. We are very much custom here at our studio, but I still have to go out and educate myself. If I'm somewhere where there's a restoration hardware, I still look in. I'll look it up online. I will find out what the retail cost of the average sectional sofa is. And if someone is willing to tell me that they went to Restoration Hardware on the weekend and looked, and I know they start at $12,000 for that particular sofa, but I know I can have it made for way less than half of that and profit the rest.
Absolutely.
That is where I would gain confidence, because I know I'm getting, now this is not a knock at Restoration Hardware, so no one come at me for Restoration Hardware. It's just, if you're able to do custom and I'm able to pick that fabric that I know would be a hardworking fabric for the family with the dog and the cat and the kids that could maybe have some soiling on it, and I know that that sofa is going to look like $1 million in 10 years, and they paid less than what they were going to pay at retail, and maybe it's American made as opposed to coming from somewhere else and being shipped. And, we could definitely sell it in a different way. And it's actually a better product. Mm-hmm. That gives me confidence to be able to quote that and supply that luxury item to my client unapologetically, because I know I'm providing them with a better product, period, with a better made, material. So you could gain that confidence if you're taking control of the items that you're able to sell.
Yep.
Because now you're able to warranty those items and feel confident about those items. And some of that comes with having really great vendor relations and building that up. So that's one element. If you are confident in knowing your worth, if you know your worth and you know that you're right, I think that reads right away to a client, as opposed to you don't love the design. We all know when we get that feeling like something is not right with this design.
Yes.
There's something I'm not feeling. And I've done it where, right at the last minute, I'm like, I still don't like it. Something needs to change. And I know I'm going to lose money because now I didn't allot for those hours that I'm making that choice, but just wasn't sitting right with me. And then they love it and they buy every element. So it will be worth it. But it's having that confidence. If you have that feeling, because we all have intuition, it's whether you choose to listen to it. If you have that feeling, then change it until you don't. Because if you have the confidence when you slide your presentation or have them come into your studio or you bring it to their home, and you are really believing all of the elements that you've selected are real and right, I do believe that comes through.
I totally
agree.
And
that reads as confidence to your client. So I think it does come with time. I think it does come with a little more seasoned. You'll get better and better at it.
Yeah.
But you have to know your prices so that you can educate your client so that they feel confident in what they're buying from you as well.
I love what you said about intuition with your pricing. And this is where I think there has to be an allowance for a variable. In our firm, we call it the 5% more care. If you have just 5% more care, like you sit with that intuition, you're like, yep, this needs 5% more and it's going to be a slam dunk. It's that tipping point Malcolm Gladwell talks about, right? It's that tipping point of I'm going to do 5% more because I know it's going to make the difference, because my intuition's telling me it's just this one thing is off. And if we fix it, we'll have a cohesive design. I can just feel it in my gut. It's just not there. How do you allow for that in a pricing model? Do you allow for that? Do you build that in? How do you give yourself the freedom to still have your creative license so you have some wiggle room while still making sure you aren't like 20 hours in of unbillable because you flat rated it and now you're in trouble, but you've got a slam dunk design?
I've tried all the ways. This goes back to the 10 years of trying every which direction of how to be profitable and what worked best. And at the end of the day, what works best for us based on hours. And we track every hour in this office. We track everything. Like I will track today's time chatting with you just so I can allot and see where my week went. Even though, this is not a billable hour. It's just to see where that time went. Like to the point where I had to tell some of the girls in the office, you don't have to tell me when you went to the bathroom. Like I don't need to see, got up, went to the bathroom, because that's how diligent we are with tracking our time. And because we do that, I have a really good idea of what it takes us to do a project.
Yep.
So it is a flat rate that we charge based on hours. But in addition to that, I build in all of the one revision that we include in our design. And then there is a wee bit of a buffer in there, which typically, hopefully we don't always use, but doesn't get used. If it doesn't get used, then, it's going to get eaten up in phone calls or something else down the road. But yes, it's allotted for, and we've done that by tracking hours. So we track every hour in this office and still do it, and then still have to make sure that we do the due diligence of going back after and applying it to the project to see if we were bang on and if we lost it.
I think that's so smart. You're constantly measuring. If you're not measuring, to anyone out there who's not measuring their hours and how long it's taking you to do projects, you cannot win the game.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you want to make money, which is a numbers game, you got to have numbers to support it. So whether it's Clockify, whether it's QuickBooks Time, whatever you're putting it into, put it into something. Just having help. Just please start with your time so you know what you and your team. If it's just you, you count. How do you know how to set your pricing if you don't do you first? Because to your point about sitting on this call today, that will even get tracked. We put that under marketing. That becomes a marketing expenditure, right? Because we're sitting here, we're talking about what we're doing, how we're doing it, about our firms, about our programs. Like that still counts because there's only so many hours in the day. I would love to go down the rabbit hole a minute of like the things you should bill for that you're not billing for, because I think this comes up a lot. Client gifts to finish out the job. If that's not on your billable sheet, it should be, in my opinion. Push back on that or tell me what your thoughts are.
No, same thing. The only thing that I have always struggled with is the photography because it's such a huge expenditure on any project, and it is of zero value to the client and 100% value to us. So that is the one thing that is not built in, and we actually do absorb that. And some of that balances out by the staging and maybe them buying the pieces that we've brought into stage for the photography, and that might help balance that out a little bit. But that is the one nugget where I struggle with. I don't build that in because it's really like they're letting us back into their home, and sometimes it's 2 days and it's very intrusive. And so that's the one thing that's not built in. But all the gifts, that's something. And kilometers, like so many designers, and I want to say,
I'm like kilometers.
Sorry, your miles. Your miles. I apologize. Are not charging for driving to site every time. Like when I price a job, I work in how long that job is going to be, and you know it's going to go over if you're not in control. If it's potentially a different contractor you don't work with regularly, you need to add an extra 4 to 5 visits, weeks of visits into that job. Your kilometers should be factored into your miles. We have some toll highways here that are the more efficient way to move around during the day. We bill for that as well. It's built into the flat rate already.
So smart.
All of these small things that you don't think add up, it all is taking away from your bottom line. The gas, the kilometer miles, it's going to take me a minute.
Okay.
Like all of those small things, like those things add up and are taking away from your bottom line. And I'll just circle back a little bit because you did say you have to know your numbers. That is crucial. There was a few years my head was in the sand. I was only seeing the profit and was never figuring out what was costing and what was getting taken.
You were seeing gross, not net.
And again, you don't...
Net's where it's at, folks. If you don't know your net, you don't know what you got.
Yeah, you need to know what it takes to run your business. When I worked in my home for many years, you kind of think, this doesn't cost me. It does cost. The internet costs money. Your cell phone costs money. The computer you sit at costs money. Every program that you have to run your business costs money. There are things every single day that are taking away from your bottom line. So if you think you've profited, let's say $10,000 on that project, you did not.
You are lying to yourself. This is a hard moment of truth for you, but you are lying to yourself.
I'm looking at my bank account. Why is there only $7,000 in there? Well, because it's been costing you money months after months to run that job. And so you have to know your numbers. It is imperative to take your head out of the sand, sit down. And once you do, it's addictive.
Oh, and it's liberating and empowering and all these things that we need to feel anyway.
Yeah. It's like drapery. I always say to my clients, you do it once, you tell me you don't need it. You're going to call me back and I'm going to do the whole house. Yep. I hear it's like tattoos. I don't have one, but I hear it's the same idea. So that's what I'm going to tell you is going to happen with your accounting. You're going to end up figuring out, and then you're going to want to be more efficient in your accounting because you're going to want to see that profit margin grow. You're going to want to see, how can I get this to be bigger and better? And that's the goal.
Well, and it's so interesting too, on the commercial side, when we do photography, the way we don't absorb those fees because we turn around and we sell them back to the client. I mean, it's built into the job cost because then we say we pay the commercial licensure on it. So then they can use it when they're marketing those buildings, which is really helpful. But to your point about, yes, your home office or your cell phone, or in the States, that's all tax deductible. If you're not taking that tax deduct or talking to your CPA about it, you're leaving more money on the table again. Like all of that matters so very much. And like you said, it is addictive. You want to see it grow and grow and grow. And once you start understanding numbers, it's super fun. I made myself a promise back in the day when I was in my 20s, and I used to be terrified to log into my checking account because it was my first job out of college. And I think I was making like 25, 30 grand, and it was just pitiful at best. And I just sat myself down. I was like, Katie, every time you feel the fear, you must go log in and look. And I was like, it's going to be so hard. It was the best life decision ever because it tapped down the fear. And to your point about empowerment, put you back in the seat of empowerment of, okay, this is where my numbers are at. If I don't like it, go get a side hustle. If I don't like it, find a new job. If I don't like it, fix the situation. And the same is exactly true of a firm. Are you tired of trying to keep up with the latest trends in colors and fabrics and still run your business? I am going to share an industry secret tool that has become a powerhouse for our firm. Meet the Nel Colore Color Book. This color and texture forecast resource was developed by an incredible Italian designer, Nello Morelli, who is a worldwide influencer in all these areas and even more. Luxury brands from Milan to Paris consult with him. And now we are partnering with Nello to bring his expertise stateside and set you apart from your competition. This Nel Colore Color Trend Book includes sociological contents, color combinations, color notation systems, and forecasts of what you need up to 2 years in advance, so you can truly impress your clients and not have to worry about keeping tabs on the latest and greatest when it comes to trends. Design is based on our ability as interior designers to anticipate people's needs, wants, and social behaviors. This talent of anticipating the best colors, paints, and materials are what sets us apart as an industry and sets your work apart from the competition. This is why we are thrilled to share with you the Nel Colore Color Trend Book found exclusively in the showroom of The Studio on our website. We are providing the link for you in the show notes. So you've created this beautiful program to help designers through this because it's really great to talk about this. We know we need to do it. The big question becomes the how, and then there's the overwhelm, right? Like, okay, how many programs am I going to need? And then like, how often do I have to look at this? And how does this really work? And everyone says flat fee, but I don't know if that's right for me in my area of the country or the world. So you poured your heart and soul into creating this program. Tell us about it.
Well, if I knew how much time it was going to take, I might not have done it. I'm not going to lie to you. It is still, because I'm sure you're the same. I'll be driving, minding my own business, singing a song, and all of a sudden an idea comes and I'm like, oh, I got to add that.
Totally.
Because designers need to hear this. It's things we do every day because we've been doing this for, I always say we're seasoned, right? Like I've been doing this decades.
It's a really nice way of saying we're old over here and perimenopausal, but you know, barely. Oh my gosh.
So I've been doing this 27 years and I just wish this existed when I was coming up, how many years I would have saved and how much money I left on the table actually makes me physically sick. And you're right. There are a lot of programs. There really are. And I've taken them and they've been of great value in some areas. Like things change and it's always great to hear what someone else does. And if there's overlap in your process or whatever the course is, I think that that's great. And then you can always learn something. Fabulous. The one thing I couldn't find was the one thing that I was being asked about. You were on my podcast and I get lovely DMs from all women. I've never heard from a man. So I think I can confidently say that women, designers, stagers, decorators, anyone in our design enthusiast world. And the questions were consistent on how to charge, how to make money, how to do. And it became very obvious. So I went looking to see, does it exist? And I couldn't find anything. And I've read the books, like I've tried to find this information myself over the years and just came up with what worked here with us. And of course, to your point, it doesn't mean it works everywhere, but you know your business best. Just like if you have a child, you know your child best. You know if flat feet isn't going to work in your area, then that's okay. You do what works best for you. But there are 30 other modules that might help you be able to bill in a way that will make you more profitable, which is the goal.
Yep.
But that was the commonality, is that it didn't exist. No one was teaching it. So I had gone to High Point with some other designer friends of mine who are American. And as we were walking around and I'm asking questions in the same showrooms and they were like, how do you know? It became very clear. And to be honest, two of them were the ones that are like, I will buy this from you. When are you going to do it? And I was like, I'm not doing that. And so now it's snowballed, and I'm a person that once I write it as a thing to do, it's going to happen. And so
I love that.
It's been 9 months. Again, I didn't have the time, but now it's become something where I have made the time. It is important. It needs to be out there, because even if 50% of this applies to you, and you can increase your rates 50% more next year, and then 50% more the next year, and 50, you're doing better.
Absolutely. I always say it's the 80-20. Like, give me 80% of the way there. 20% is never going to fit. Think about going into a dressing room. We're happy to get a 50% success rate, right? I mean, my gosh, we're all shaped so differently as women. I love it. Good Housekeeping way back in the day did 10 size 10s on their cover like 20 years ago. I was like, there's no way. And totally. So take that same, model and apply it to your business. If you can figure out 80%, 50%, if we can get you further down the road to profitability, that's where we want you to be.
Katie, do you know how many designers do not charge for their consultations?
Why?
And back in the day, I didn't either. I remember thinking, like, why am I driving all the way downtown, an hour and a half it takes us to get from Toronto, all the way back?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd get there, and they forgot about the appointment.
No.
And I'm out of time. I'm out of miles and kilometers. I'm now thinking it's me. I'm going through my phone. Did I get the dates wrong? Did you get? It's because I wasn't important to you. It didn't cost them anything.
Yeah.
They could forget about me.
We call that skin in the game in the States. And there's nothing wrong with asking a potential to have skin in the game.
I think it makes you more professional.
I totally agree.
I think that is perceived as a more professional way. But a lot of designers and decorators are not charging for their initial 2-hour consultation in home. That is billable time. Why would you give that away for free?
And they're going to ask you questions. They're going to say, well, what would you do here? What would you do there? What do you think about? And all of that knowledge we were talking about that your doctor has accrued to be able to come in there and say, you're carrying that into the consultation. That is a huge, huge value. It's interesting. My favorite restaurant here actually requires a credit card be put on file to make a reservation.
Yeah, a lot of them are doing that now.
Have I ever missed a reservation?
Right.
Not a one. One, I love the restaurant too. It's super bougie and fabulous. But 3, if they're going to hold a table and they're going to assign wait staff for me, and they're going to make sure that the wine list is present and accounted for, and I can get a bottle, and there's enough ingredients in the kitchen, fine, go ahead. Put my credit card on file. I don't show, it gets charged. I do show, it doesn't matter. It's a fair way to do business with a professional. This isn't Walmart grocery delivery where it gets dropped on your doorstep, whether you're there or not, right? We're looking for a different client experience that validates, once again, that profitability and endorses who you are before you even step foot over the threshold of their residence.
Well, I always say we're a luxury service, period. Our clientele have made enough money in their month that they have money left over to hire someone to help them purchase and make things look pretty for items they don't actually need.
Yeah.
How many houses have you walked into and they don't already have a sofa? They have a sofa. They just want a new one. They just want one that's prettier. So we are in the business of aesthetics, period. It's all vanity. It's all pretty. It's all luxury. It doesn't matter if you said to me, well, I'm buying, I don't care where you're buying. You're still a luxury service to that individual. And so that is where we need to always be thinking about who our client is, for starters.
For sure. Know your target persona.
Yeah. Who are you working with? Who are your services for? If you don't know that, then who are we marketing to? So there's just that lesson right there.
Go back and listen to the Bell Go Go to episode if you have questions about that, folks. It'll be in the show notes. Go back and listen if you don't know your target persona, because then no wonder you're not profitable. You don't even know who you're talking to.
Who are you selling these items to? But then there's all the different ways you can charge in your process. And that is a key, I think, to just the baseline. And to be honest, we cover that in module 1 because those are just the basics. And then the other 5 weeks is how are we getting you more bottom line, and what does that look like, and how to do it, and how to not be comp shop. All the things that you probably always wonder what other designers are doing. This is how you're getting to be profitable. Yeah. And I think the other little nugget is a lot of designers always say to me, but I'm not doing the full home design. And they think that's a disservice. And it's not. Not every project is sexy. Not every project is the full design. We do full design. And then we have peppering in of all these other small ones that add up to a lot of money at the end of the year.
Don't blow your nose on that powder bath. No pun intended. Right? You might be surprised about how much that grass cloth wallpaper runs.
That's right. Wow, we just did a wallpaper for a client with $7,000.
Yeah. We just did that in a leasing office and it was ridiculous. They love the effect. Super dramatic. It's Phoenix. It needed it. It's an aesthetic town. 100% beauty. Yeah. And adored it. Yeah. But, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, which I think is the value of taking courses like this. So if you're sitting here and you're like, but I feel really guilty that we're only catering to the top 1% of 1%, right? We get this a lot. Yeah, but I'm not like making a difference in society. Okay, I hear you. In fact, that's why we started our corporate social responsibility wing, ColorWorks Cares, where we go and we do give backs. So dented, damaged, multiples, duplicates. Sometimes they ship 2 instead of 1, right? We'll always go back to the vendor and we'll say, we want to donate this to a nonprofit in this community that does X, Y, and Z. It's a domestic violence shelter, right? It's a homeless empowerment program where they're getting people on their feet and giving them homes. Habitat for Humanity is a big one in the States. Things like that. Go find a way to take all of this and do this, or build it back into your profitability model and say 1% of the job is always given to a local. Don't get political, people. You'll piss people off, especially in the United States. Don't get political, but pick something neutral that empowers people and say 1% of the job cost, we do a give back. And then build that into your costs so that you can find a way to say we're not just in business for the top 1%. We're actually taking 1% and giving it back to our community.
And it feels good too. We do the same. We have a line of candles that we work with this company, and they do custom scents for us with our own. It is bougie and it's very luxe driven, of course. However,
yeah, but it's unique and fabulous.
Every time we do that, the equal amount of money goes into the children's mental health.
Love it.
It comes in a beautiful package with the note saying that all the proceeds, like we are not, making money. And then we get clients who want to rebuy it. So every time they rebuy from us, it takes us time and effort to do all the buying and delivering, but we don't mind because we know that the proceeds are actually, it makes us feel good. It makes them feel good. Plus it's a nice item to have in your home. And we usually customize the scent to the client, but it's a nice little give back that way too.
Yeah. It's like Bomba socks or Tom shoes, buy a pair, give a pair, like
you find the ways.
It's a really cool way to do it. You do find the ways. When you were building out your program, did you have any, I'm making a really long O now. I've been talking to you too long and I'm getting my Canadian O's for process and program. But did you have, as you were building out your program, did you have any aha moments that you're like, this is the nugget that I really want to share, or this is, because it's an extensive program. What were the aha moments, even for you, 27 years into this career, that really jumped out at you as you were putting it on paper?
So I think designers and decorators will get this. When you're designing a kitchen for your client and you tell them to stop just moving every day, how you just do things rote. You don't put thought to how you function in the space and you're just doing it.
Yeah.
I want you to start writing down what doesn't work, or how far are you walking to go get those knives? Are you walking with a pot of water or hot water too far? We get them to stop, slow down, and start thinking about what they do every day without thinking. They just do it while they're making dinner happen and start writing down the things that you want to fix. And so when I started to build this course out, there were things that you just don't even realize you do it anymore. You just do it.
Yeah.
And when you have to start writing it down and you see it, I'm like, I don't even remember how I started to do this, but I really can see that this will help. And that would be markups, how to know how to mark up and where to mark up. And honestly, I think the biggest thing for any of us in this industry is there's going to be a couple, but what are your top profiting items in your business that you sell on every project? What is giving you the biggest ROI? Where are you making the most money?
Yep.
Where are you making the least amount of money?
And stop doing it unless it supports the high profit items.
Right.
Walk away. I think as women, we're so afraid to walk away, right? Like if I stop doing it, but Laura, but, stop, but.
Yeah. Or fix it in a way that can be, I'll just give you an example. So again, walking around High Point with some designer friends, and they were talking about these case goods. And I said, I'll walk in the showroom with you, but I don't buy a coffee table. I haven't bought a coffee table in over 20 years.
Right.
And they all looked at me like, why would you not buy? I'm like, well, there's only 15 to 20% profit margin on that. So there's zero value for me. Not that that's not decent. So anyone who sells them all the time, good for you. I am not somebody who needs to have my work look exactly like what you find in the magazines. In fact, I do not want that. That's just me. But my clients tend to want to, when they get home, because a lot of them own their own businesses, they run like we do, long hours. When you come home, you want ultimate comforts. And typically that includes the ability to kick your feet up without being on a lazy boy. I always say I have one lazy boy. He's my husband. His name is Derek. And he's not lazy, but he's the only lazy boy I'll ever own. So,
And I'm sure that Derek loves hearing that he is owned by his wife.
Yeah,
I just want to say,
not,
Derek,
like,
you're going to get some florals from us over here at ColorWorks. We're just going to let you know we see
He really
you.
is. He puts up with me and my crazy. But I will never own a lazy boy. I could never do it.
It just makes my heart shrivel.
Right. Yeah. Like I itch. Like it makes me, it makes me itchy.
Yes. It's like walking into a cobwebs and you just start patting yourself.
Can't do it. No levers. I don't care. You can tell me they have switches now. I don't care. It's not happening. But my point is that I want people to have the ultimate comfort. So I always will push an upholstered ottoman. Because I make 100% markup on furniture. 100%.
Yep. That's what we do. If you're not doing that, go back.
Yeah, but it's also uber comfortable. In addition to that, I might get the pushback, well, what do I do if I have food? Well, that's not a problem. We're going to sell you a tray. And now we're going to decorate that tray for you. So not only have I made your life more comfortable and more elegant, I've made more money. Plus, I've sold you a tray and all the stuff that goes on it. And at the end of the day, it's a much prettier picture. It absorbs sound, which we all know that every room needs, especially as the ceilings get higher and higher. So as much as it sounds like it's just about the dollars and cents, and I learned that it absolutely helped my bottom line, it also hits a lot of other things. And it's a great sales tool for any designer to be able to say that's a custom piece. So when our clients have the ability to tell their friends and family, no, you can't have that. And I can't tell you where I got that because our designer had it custom made. They love that. Our clients love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the custom candle, which I think is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
I mean, how great is that? We specified a scent for you based on, once again, we're offering a luxury service. It's about them. It's about them coming home to a place that is lovely and embraces them. Or as Michelle in Pants says, gives them a big hug at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Everyone wants a hug at the end of the day. And then how many referrals come out of that statement? Well, you can have that. My designer created. Who's your designer? That's the next question. Who's your designer? Because I need her to make me one.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great system.
It is. And you know that the referrals come and they want the same thing, which of course you can't give them. But then we're like, oh no, we can do better. We can find something else for you.
Yeah.
But it's knowing those numbers. So I highly recommend you have to do a deep dive constantly into your numbers and be on it to see where your profit margins are the highest.
Yeah.
And then those are the elements that you need to be pushing more and more often.
Yeah.
And if you want to look exactly like what's in the magazines, then they actually don't need you as a designer. So you need to be thinking ahead and that it doesn't date. And the beauty is if you do start getting into any custom furniture, your custom manufacturer will happily redo their own furniture years down the road. Right now, I think we have 5 or 6 clients that have come back from 10 to 12 years ago who now want all their furniture recovered because the kids are older. The dog died. They're not worried about them working so hard for them. Now I want a white sofa because we're older and it's just us and we can do it. And so we are refinishing so much furniture that we've done 10, 12 years ago. They're not looking retail.
No.
They're not going somewhere else. They're coming back. Yeah. And it's quality pieces. So we're still getting the work years later.
And that's the big thing. I think we had talked about it when I was on your show, but if you are not selling your furniture, you are not in business. Like I always lovingly say, design fees pay the bills, furniture is where we make the money. And so like by the time you do marketing expenses, overhead expenses, all the things, that's great. That gets rolled up into design bills. But like you said, you have to start measuring it. It may be different for you depending on what your hourly rate is or what your structure is, but start down the path of at least nailing that down so you could figure out what are your KPIs? And then what that does is it creates this beautiful cycle where that starts informing your marketing, right? If you find you're making all of your money off of kitchens, then market the hell out of kitchens, right? But you don't know where to spend your marketing money until you understand what's actually making money for you.
To your point, the furniture, the decorating is more profitable.
Always.
You might make more money in the construction renovation,
Yeah.
but they usually take far longer. Like they're usually up to 2-year projects.
That's true too.
And so are you actually making as much money when you have to allow for that project for that amount of time? So it might look really good as the bottom dollar, but you need to pepper in a lot of projects that are solely decorating to be able to balance those out.
That's such a good point because it brings back up gross versus net again. And I love that you're making the link. This is so important. Time is money. Wealthy business owners, wealthy clients, what do? They buy back their time. That's what you were brought in, right? You were brought in to buy back their time. They don't want to go down to the furniture store and try to figure out what kind of springs. Is it 8-way hand tied? Is it kiln dried wood? That's why you were brought in. They want their time back with their kids, their time back with their family. And by the same token, you should want that for yourself. So figure out how to make profit so you can buy back that time. Like you referenced at the beginning of the conversation, 20 minutes, I can do this, but build a client for that. That's very fair. What do you say to the designer that says, Laura, I hear you. I'm on board. I totally say this, but I'm so afraid that my clients are going to see me as money driven.
Well, again, I'm unapologetically in business to make money. We all have to be, or why are we in business? You can't apologize for choosing to be your own boss. We all did it for a reason. Do we remember why we did it? This is one of the things that I always say to designers. Why did you go out on your own? What were you hoping? And you just nailed it on the head. The first thing was time. I wanted to be more with my children, or I wanted to have my own ability to run my own calendar and the ability to make more money, because we all could see working for somebody else how much they were billing for our time. And we could all see the potential of what possibility was there for us to make. Those were the two initial. And then we get caught up in the running it every day that we forget to stop, pump the brakes and think, what did I start doing this again for? So if anyone ever came at me and said something to me of that effect, which has never happened in 27 years. I've never had a client say something to me that I'm price driven, then maybe that's not the right client for you. Yeah. Maybe that's not the right person you should be working with if someone is that bold to say that to you. But my response would be, and I am very confident in myself and my abilities and my business, I am in business to make money. It wouldn't be a profitable business model to not be making money. I can't keep the lights on. I couldn't pay the heat. We'd be sitting here in the cold, or I wouldn't be in my office as we are right now. But I've never had anyone push back. If you're not comfortable with jumping to probably where you should be charging, then I would say do it slowly until you gain that confidence and see if there's pushback. If your clients are pushing back, then let's see where we can get you to somebody else, or maybe you adjust until you're a bit more comfortable. But if you're going to ask people ahead of time, I'm going to raise my rates, and you're not sure, then of course there's going to be the what? No. But if you are confident, say, moving forward, everything has gone up in the world in the last 2 years, everything. If your rates aren't moved up, there is a bigger problem. Like just to get groceries the other day, it was $68 for a wee grocery bag of, like everybody's rates have gone up. Cost of living has gone up. Your rates need to adjust accordingly.
And unapologetically. What is the name of your program? Where does everybody find it?
The program is called the Profit Academy for Interior Designers, and it's not just for interior designers. It would be for interior decorators and stagers, anyone in this world. But there's a lot of websites and a lot of things that are called the Profit something. So I needed to make it a little bit easier to find. So the Profit Academy for Interior Designers is what the program is called. It will be linked through the Business of Beautiful Spaces website as well for the podcast. It's 6 weeks. So within 6 weeks, you could be increasing your profits for the rest of the year. You don't have to wait until January 2025. Even if you want to do it small increments or just, figure out what works best for you in your area, this is where I think you can start and at least start changing your bottom line, like your profit margin.
Which is your take home and whether you're going to Hawaii on vacation or not this year. Let's get real. Golden nugget of this conversation. If our audience leaves with just one thing you want them to hear, what would it be?
Be unapologetically in business to make money. Be profitable.
That gives me goosebumps. I feel like every woman needs to hear that. Every woman needs to hear that. Own your finances. Don't let them own you. Own your business. Don't let it own you. Own your profits. Don't look at it as a jobby or a hobby.
Right.
Run your business unapologetically.
Yep.
Laura, such a good conversation. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. And we can't wait to see your program.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
It's always fun talking to you, Katie.
Hey, thanks for letting me bop in a minute. So long story short, back when I started my design firm, I was billing at $55 an hour. And it wasn't a firm, let's be honest. It was a side hustle. I had another full-time job. I wasn't sure if I was going to go into design. I was taking it for a test drive. And I was like, man, this is great side money. And then I'm like, Katie, you have your MBA. Good gosh, at some point, do you really want to turn this into a business? Or do you want to keep it as your jobby? Because I thought of it as a job, but in reality, it was a hobby. And I sat down and I rewrote the script of what it was going to take to be profitable, to get a firm where I wanted it to be, and to be able to walk away from my current job and have the flexibility and the income that I dreamed of. It took an immense amount of courage. I love sharing how I did it in our strategy sessions with you and helping you do it, because you can take something you love and you can unapologetically make money doing it. And that's the closing bell. I hope you've gathered valuable insight from our conversation today, equipping you to thrive in your interior design business. Don't forget to hit that follow button to never miss an episode. And if you have burning questions or specific topics you're curious about, explore our episode library, or better yet, book a strategy session directly with me at colorworks.coach. Until next time, see you in the studio. It's our virtual community, and the link is below.